And we're live.
Boom. Right on, right on, right on. All right. Yeah, I'm really excited about this show we've got for you guys today. So today I have my normal sidekick here with Didi Machete. And then also we have Danny from Terminal CWO.
Yes,
Danny's done
sir.
some podcasts with us a while back. Welcome, guys.
Appreciate it.
What's up?
By the way, I'll let everybody know right now. So I am watching my Telegram feed. If you are from Terminal CWO on Telegram, I might answer your questions if you ask in there, but maybe not too.
Yeah, somebody just asked on YouTube, is Terminal CWO going to be here? So
Yeah, dude, I'm here.
Yeah, he's here. It's Danny, looking sexy, reading his. I don't even know what book that is. The icon you guys have that you're reading. What book is that you're supposed to be reading?
Communist Manifesto.
A new requirement under the new regime. So there's I wanted to talk to you guys because the military, I haven't been a member of the military for a bit here. And obviously, I mean, the military was changing while I was in, but we've seen such a drastic change combined with basically 2 years ago, everything changed.
Yeah.
When something hit in Koof in March, we started seeing things change. But then what we are seeing in the military now is just beyond belief.
Yeah. In 2 years is definitely where we saw the big shift, but I think this is I personally the year I prescribed to the big transformation, the start of it is 2013. That's what I personally believe. Based
I
on
think
some other
so
stuff.
because I think when there was the huge purge of the general corps, because you always have somewhat of a purge. I mean, that's just inevitable. But the
Right.
purge that occurred there, that was a very specific and direct purge.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they went from the top to clean house. So, and if you don't recall, we had the Obama military drawdown at that time. We were how do I say this? We were involved in combat. We were in combat zones, I guess you could say, but Iraq wasn't happening anymore. That had been drawn down years before. We were bouncing out of there. And then Afghanistan, nothing was happening. We were just sitting on fobs and we had SF dudes running around banging in the night, but that's about it. Nothing of no big campaigns or big strategic pushes or anything. And so, like I always tell people, if you can't get promoted in the military by being a badass and being a warrior, then you have to get promoted doing something else. And they got promoted by being, I got to watch my mouth, but basically being on their knees for Congress and other people higher up there. So,
As we like to say, they were yes men.
yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
That's the appropriate term.
And so,
speaking of which,
go ahead.
Lloyd Austin, your current Secretary of Defense, he was one of those boys. I mean, the dude absolutely did nothing effectual the entire time he was a general officer, from 1-star to 4-star. And I could back that up with every single one of the stars he wore and where he was at. But the dude was a political appointee all the way through, and he was groomed for this. I mean, he was BFFs with Biden all the way through the 2000s.
Well, and then it's interesting, him having spent briefly some time at Raytheon and then coming back, and especially, seeing the current conflict that they've got going on over there in Eastern Europe, another black hole, right? Because that's just like Afghanistan. That's where money goes to be laundered.
Oh, just look at the timing of it. I mean, we bounced out of Afghanistan and the freaking wheels came off the bus. And what did the military defense industry do? They panicked. Like, oh, what are we going to do now? Let's make another war. Got to roll those bombs out. Somebody's got to get killed.
Well, and we're printing all this money. Where's that money going to go?
Right. Got it. Yeah. Big laundering machine.
And so as they did the purge in 2013, then it seemed like once there was the recent mandate for the jibber jabbers that this was the new way that they were going to try to clean house with the enlisted, which is interesting too, because if you look traditionally at history, when they're doing purges of the military and everything like that, it's usually going after the officer corps, especially that middle officer corps, because it's usually like majors and colonels and things like that that you're going to see that are going to actually be fomenting discontent. But it's interesting that they went after the enlisted.
How so? Like, break that down more for me.
So what I've seen historically, and granted, I haven't seen a lot of these, but you want to go at the higher levels of the people to take them out of the military when you're doing a purge, because those are the people like those colonels, lieutenant colonels, people like that. Those are the ones who are going to overthrow the government, perhaps, or something like that. And so a purge is generally directed towards those people to remove them so that they'll be less of a challenge because of their position. You're not going to see it generally too often from the generals because the generals tend to be more yes men.
Yeah. So stick with me here. I'll try not to make this too convoluted, but this is actually a credit to the NCO Corps, what I'm about to say. And I'm a huge fan of the NCO Corps. I don't talk about this a lot. I was a senior non-commissioned officer myself, but I routinely tell NCOs, step up, take back the military, take back your place in the military. Officers give orders, yes, but you execute. You are the backbone of all that is done. And so I think with that initial purge with Obama, what we saw was a lot of war fighters and a lot of strack NCOs who had been around for a minute, who had seen combat, who had really cut their teeth on a different type of leadership get kicked out. We saw it then. And I think we saw it with officers, but we also saw it with NCOs that mirrored that kind of level. You know, your E7 to your major, your E8 to your lieutenant colonels, your E9 all the way up through. And I think what happened with that is we saw the exact same mirroring, E9s basically becoming yes men for general officers, just completely forsaking their place as that top enlisted leader, that advisor to those generals, to those colonels. And they became yes men, basically condoning the actions of their political appointee bosses. And so what we've seen is nobody keeping anybody accountable. Our NCOs are just facilitating what our officers are doing. And so I think any NCO who's going to have an impact, they've got to clean that out as much as they have to clean out the officers, because that is as much of a threat to what they are trying to accomplish as anything. That's, if that makes sense.
Okay.
No, I can actually attest to that, because even like for me, where I was like in this in between level, you know what I mean, and you see that on the regular, and most of those that were still in and that were kind of part of like that old breed that still kind of have like that fighting spirit of not putting up with any BS that's not worth putting up with would say the same thing, and it's just like, no, like this is dumb, and we would fight against what we could, but generally speaking, most dudes even at that level, like they're so adamant about just doing stuff for themselves and getting ahead, even if it means compromising their stuff. So now that a lot of us that did fight back against all these things that were being illegally mandated, like a lot of us got pushed out, and we're just like, no, like we're kind of done with it. And then when you clean up and you no longer have that backbone of those dudes, and like females as well, because I had like junior like sailors as well that were like fighting back against us, and they were like good on them for standing up for like the correct things. But yeah, you clean out all the ones that are going against the grain, all you're left with is more yes men at the enlisted level now. And now you have that core, those E4 to E5, E6 as well, that they kind of like push all these things and they watch everything. E5 is probably like the most in between level, where you can still hang out with the juniors and like look up at the E6 and like get orders. So it's like you clean that up, and all you have is a bunch of people that follow those orders. and you've already cleaned house with the officers, so now you got people who will almost practically do anything you tell them. So it's not surprising that we're at that level now.
And you take that shot across the bow with it too. When you do something like this and you do purge the ranks and you do it in a way that's so overt, you know, they are breaking federal law by what they're doing, because there are laws put in place for people to get those religious exceptions, and it's not even medical exceptions to this stuff. And they have just blanket denied that. They've handed out a couple in I believe the Navy and the Air Force. Maybe I'm wrong about the Navy, but I know the Air Force, they handed out a couple, but those were people that were already getting out, and they did it more for show, and they really pumped it up in the news. But yeah, they my point is, they sent that shot across the bow. Basically, if you open your mouth, there is nobody who's going to come save you. You're going to lose your job, and we are going to kick you out. And then what are you going to do? That's the biggest thing with this. Everybody in the service now is like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to lose my job. That's a problem.
It's a huge problem. And I just, I've got like two thoughts about this. One thought is, wow, this is like super 8D chess kind of thing that they're doing so that they can formally just completely subvert this country. And then my other side is like, yeah, they're just kind of playing it by ear and doing whatever they can to try to just get their money as they're, basically at this point with this country, we're like down to some of the wiring in the house that they're trying to, resell that. And that's why, the majority of the money that's been printed over the last 2 years has gone overseas, because this is a way that, people that have participated in the Cohen group, like our good old friend James Mattis and people like that, their nest egg is going to be set up overseas that they're going to continue to live off of. And whatever they can do to prolong the game to keep getting money, that's what they're doing. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know. I gotta work through the thought on that. It's man, this whole thing has turned into such a money thing. And just whether it's the contractors involved, the lobbyists who lobby Congress, the defense industry, the general officers who catching payoffs on the side, or just the promise of a payoff when they get out. It's gross. It is just a big money game, and the honor and I don't want to get too boomer on this. I'm not going to get into a speech about honor and duty and all that crap. Like, I do believe in it. I do think it's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
It means something to
Mm-hmm.
me, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm not going to beat you up with that. But at the same time, there's got to be that aspect of it, because middle America is not feeling this corruption that is just spawned from this desire for money. We know where evil comes from, and it's from the love of money, and we see it, and we see what's happening in Ukraine. And we could go into that in way more detail. There are human atrocities beyond just the war that are being conducted and have been conducted all the way back to, all the stuff we know about Hunter Biden's kid and everything else, or I'm sorry, Hunter Biden and his dad and his ties to Ukraine, and what's going on with human trafficking there, and people who are being hushed, and just all the stuff floating around in the back end, and all the stuff that's being talked about. And it's like, this is money. And it completely has shot holes through our military. These people have no integrity, so corrupt, and the ones that do have integrity aren't saying anything. So therefore, you don't have integrity.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that you touched on a key point there, because I've always been interested in a lot of things in Eastern Europe and things like that. I've done a lot of just reading and studying, and even spent some time in some places over there. And you know, Ukraine is such an interesting place, but it's kind of been low key. But it's sat in the background with a lot of the human trafficking stuff, because that's been going on since the Soviet Union fell, but nobody ever really paid that much attention to it. You know, I mean, there's just places over there because, you know, like Moldova, that's another place where a lot of that goes on, which happens to be right
Yeah.
next door. Surprise, surprise. But then because there was so much corruption that went on in that country, so many of our politicians and their friends got involved because it's both sides. You know, it's not like, oh, it's the, you know, the Democrats. There's a lot of Republicans that have been involved over there. I mean, you can
Yeah,
look at, yeah, I mean, look at the videos of Lindsey Graham and good old John McCain, you know, going over there. But even before that, you know, like um, Mitt Romney, one of the guys, Topher Black, is that his name? You know, these guys have been involved over there and they're doing things that are just laundering money. That's all it is. And the political class is set up in Ukraine in such a way that they are selected by our government to help out with that. Now, then when we entered into that whole, I forget what that, you know, like when they're a potential NATO country. So then we're doing all kinds of military training over there as well. So we've got all of this banking and corporate corruption going on, and then you layer the military on top of that, and
yeah.
it's been set up for something really gross.
Well, you know, one of the things that we keep harping on, and we have proof of, it's in lawsuits now. We know it's not even, you don't need proof. Just go read any SEC filing. The Secretary of Defense has stock that he currently holds in Nucor, which is steel, in Raytheon, which is the board he sat on for obviously defense industry, and he currently has stock in them. He's divested some of it, but not all of it.
Which he was supposed to be completely divested of months ago.
Right. Well, long as of March of last year, he was supposed to have been. And then Tenet Healthcare. Well, Tenet Healthcare, we know, is, if you look at Tenet Healthcare sites, they're all over the United States, and they populate primarily outside of military installations. Well, Tenet Healthcare was not doing so hot. Yeah, weird. They weren't doing so hot until this stuff kicked off about a year and a half ago with Pfizer. They got in bed with Pfizer, and all of a sudden their stock shot up. And now Mr. Sekdev, who is, you know, coming out in these tweets saying that he is so invested in your health and your well-being. I'm like, dude, we have injuries from the jab up 1,100%. And that's data that was pulled as of June 12th from Marcus Shaw, lieutenant type epidemiologist, 16 years in the military. He was Air Force, Army officer now, but he was a whistleblower for this stuff. And the point is, my point with all this is the Secretary of Defense has stock, obviously conflict of interest in these things, that he's sending weapons to Ukraine. He's having our troops get jabbed with this stuff, and he's making money off that, $1.5 million as of June. And Congress knows. So if they know, and people keep asking, well, why isn't he in jail? Was it because they know, and they're part of it?
Yep.
They're part of it.
Yep. And what's interesting though too is how much of the weaponry isn't even making it to Ukraine. There's the weaponry that's going to a lot of the former Eastern Bloc countries that are now getting the ability to upgrade to these new Western systems, right? And so then they're turning around and sending their old Soviet style weapons off to the Ukraine. I do wonder too at times, because I've heard a lot of stories about this, and from people who've even spent time on the ground over there, where there are weapons that they come into country and they turn around and get resold to third parties who resell them to who knows where.
Yeah, we saw the pictures of those javelins, and there's been some conjecture about the authenticity of that, but the fact is that those beat up looking javelins that looked like they had been hidden in the dirt or whatever, and why I don't know. They were
they thought they were AKs, pictures, so they were burying them.
Right. And they had these things up on whatever their Ukrainian, you know, eBay is over there. I don't know. Anyways, this stuff went public, and a lot of people said, oh, that's fake. That's not real. But it made you wonder, because here's the thing. People talked a lot about, what was it, like $6-7 billion for a wall on the southern border that we couldn't get approved. Trump wanted his wall on the southern border, couldn't get it approved. Oh, we can't afford to give that kind of money. But when it came to $40 billion, people coughed that up, no problem. And the thing is, who's going to track any of that money? Nobody. You can't track the cost of javelins and all this other stuff. You don't know.
Well, then
it's just a laundry machine.
At the same time that they were so willing to approve the 40 billion for that, there was like 39 billion for American small businesses that they disapproved. Jeez. Like, and then think about this too. When they were trying to get the money, the quote unquote stimulus checks for people, and the way they hemmed and hawed at, I don't know that we could give some money to that, But one thing that's interesting, those javelins that they were talking about were fake, maybe. But I know I've heard other stories from people, and I've seen videos of guys speaking Arabic, and they're talking about how they've gone there to purchase them to take them back to Syria. And
look at Afghanistan, dude. I mean, the biggest joke in the world. How do you even make a joke about it? We just rolled out and gave them, a country's worth of arms. Just here you go.
Well, and
I'm just jealous it wasn't.
They genuinely. Well, and they genuinely thought that they were going to have 6 months before the Taliban was going to challenge them, and in 2 weeks they were taking over Kabul. Like, we don't have the smartest people running this stuff, but they are running stuff, which makes them that much more dangerous.
Right. Yeah, it does. One of the most painful things about that whole situation was the fact that, Underground S2, I know a lot of you follow him if you're listening. S2 Underground, I guess. Anyways, dude's awesome. Dude is on point. Yeah. He makes some freaking smoking hot videos and puts out some solid intel, not just about the military, but things going on in the world. If you don't follow him, you need to follow him, S2 Underground. But anyways, my point is, he, in one of his intel updates, put this information out. And not only did he put it out, but he put out an assessment. I'm almost certain that he put out an assessment that was like the likelihood of which gate was going to be hit. He nailed it. Which gate the bomb went off on, and that killed the Marines and that sailor and soldier. And I'm like, whoa, hold up. Open source intel nailed this one hours before it took place, but our boys in the labs upstairs couldn't get this done. Bullshit. Excuse my language. They knew. They absolutely knew. Nobody acted. Nobody cared.
Man. Well, and you remember too, man. Remember when they killed that guy and his family that was the aid worker over there? Like, and how they were convinced that they had taken out were they saying he was Taliban, or were they saying he was actually ISIS? I think they were trying to say he was ISIS.
They're trying to say he was ISIS because they wanted the Taliban support for it.
And then they even went so far as to say initially that the president approved the hit. Do you remember that too? And then the minute that it finally was proven that he wasn't, that's when they were like, they tried to bury the fact that the president was a part of it, because they were trying to portray it as like, look at this heroic thing that he's done, killing this ISIS terrorist. I guess, man, like, I've known there's been BS. I know there's been a lot of BS, but the level of BS that they're trying to feed us as they try to shut down our ability to see other forms of information it's insane right now.
Yeah. It's embarrassing to think that anybody believes this in the first place, but it's insulting to think that they're saying this stuff and they think these are legitimate arguments to counter anything we're putting out on the side of truth. It's like, stop. It's insulting to think that we would believe any of this or anybody else would, but it comes down to those useful idiots out there who, I guess, either do believe it or just parrot it because it's their side that's saying it. And they put these lies out there, but they're so egregiously bad and it's so blatantly obvious. And that's the thing. Like you said, this stuff's been taking place for years. Okay. We're not dealing with a new form of corruption. It might have gotten worse. There might be more people involved. It's different corruption, but there's nothing new under the sun. And this has been
But I
going
think,
on. Yeah.
I was just going to say, but what I think that it has been is that there was always, different levels of corruption, but they've gotten away with it for so long that it's like so many people have their hands in the pot now and they're making a lot of money from it. And that's what makes it that much worse, the corruption as well. Because like you're talking about just the money factor, the mammon means so much to these people that they don't care about this country. They just care about getting that next $1 billion, whether it's Dan Crenshaw getting his insider trading tips, or if it's Lloyd Austin, being able to get Raytheon to sell other things, or I guess apparently as well to have more and more of his company Tenet Health set up outside more military bases, because gonna make that green somehow.
Hey man, don't
Yeah.
talk
And it's
about
just
my boy Red Clops, like a red flag Cyclops, bro. Come on.
oh man.
So somebody had asked a question a minute ago if he's still on. He asked, "What's it going to take to change what the military has turned into?" And I want to answer that question directly, but what I'll say to you is this: how do we get away from this? How do we get away from politicians that groom and bring up other politicians, and general officers who groom and bring up other general officers, in the defense industry, and this recycle that goes on and just pumps the same people through and through and through? How do you get away from that? Honestly, it's happening right now. What happened with Roe versus Wade, and stick with me on this, but when the Supreme Court said that basically the Constitution does not protect your ability to get an abortion, this needs to be a decision made at the state level. That was huge for one reason that I'm getting to, that is leading to that answer. It's basically state rights are huge, and states have not had rights for so long on so many things. And the way that this country was formed was so that states would have those rights. In fact, our highest form of law enforcement was supposed to be sheriffs. Well, we've ballooned up this thing with the federal government and everything else. But what I tell people all the time is, no, the only form of law enforcement you should care about is your local sheriff. And you need to be voting in your local sheriff and know who is doing that. Your local DA, your local politicians, up to the state level. These people are going to start making powerful decisions here, because as more and more things are stripped away from the federal government and they go down to the state, that is where the power is going to reside. And that is where decisions are going to be made. They come out and they start cleaning house of a lot of this stuff.
Well, and you can see the reverse of that, because Soros has been really good about going into a lot of jurisdictions across this country and bankrolling DAs. And so those people, because it doesn't cost that much for a billionaire to bankroll a DA election. And it's not like people pay that much attention. So you get enough of the manipulation of the facts out there, promote your DAs, because it's just a couple $1 million, even a place like LA, to get somebody elected. And then what that ends up doing to a city at that level. So if at a big city level it does that, think about at that small level. And if more people were willing to really do that, to fight, because I was talking to another one of my buddies about that this morning before I headed off to church, because he was talking about, how can we make a difference and everything like that. And that's really the thing, is it's at that local level, because at the end of the day, it's about community. And that's part of your community. That's the biggest part of your community. And if you can get county after county after county next to one another doing these types of things, that's going to be a big bulwark.
Yeah. And then, the recall that we just saw in LA or was it it was San Francisco. The DA there was just kicked out for the progressive policies, and they're doing some crazy things. Once again, one of those things where it's like, it's so crazy, it's so over the top, and then saying it's not. Like, who are you lying to, dude? But they ended up getting the recall on this guy. And I think people are realizing, hey, we still have power here. We still have the ability to do something. Okay, so we saw some really wild things happen, as evidenced by Dinesh D'Souza's freaking video about all of the mules that were running these ballots for the federal election. But let's not even talk about the federal election. Let's talk about these local elections. People still have power, and they can still do stuff that doesn't involve this crazy talk about picking up arms and going to war. That's not where we're at in this fight. We're not there yet. So just chill on that. You can do stuff at your local level.
Yep. It's that Chase Bowden who is was tied together with the family, like Weather Underground people.
Yeah.
Like his parents were Weather Underground. And like for you guys that don't know that are following us, Weather Underground like legitimately set off bombs. Like I think they even bombed the Capitol building in the 70s or early 80s at one point. Like these are not good people, but they've never really faced they've never been held accountable.
Bro,
Which I mean, that's a whole other kind of thing. But
they did
real quick,
heinous stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And then you've got the guy in LA, Gascon, and he is in the process of being recalled as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know, man. Sometimes it's disheartening, at some ways, but I think, we do have that hope, right? Because we can fight back. And I mean, you guys both have the recent time in the military, and what you're seeing there, and I think your point to what you're saying, Danny, and tell me if I'm right, is like if we can start changing some of these things, we can make some of those bigger, broader changes that are needed in the country in order to take the military back and make the military what it needs to be.
Yeah, man. Everything happens at the smallest level. Everything. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the international economy. At the smallest level, it's a dollar going out of a dude's pocket into somebody else's pocket. Everything starts at the smallest level, and the grassroots stuff matters. This stuff is important. And guess what? Yeah, dude, I get disheartened too. I feel you, man. Some days, especially with the stuff I do, I take these stories in, and I'm trying to, mix the garbage dump that comes into me, and how sometimes I feel so much despair, and I'm like, I don't even want to do this, man. I just want to delete my accounts and stop doing this. It's so much. It involves so much work, but then we'll have some successes, and I realize I'm like, no, man, this is warfare. This is warfare. Nobody's going to hand this to me.
Yep.
Nobody is going to give you that freaking hill. We read these stories all the time when we come through boot camp or basic training. We read the stories about the guys who got the medals of honor, and they're talking about dudes who are slogging up, leg blown off, taking out a freaking a pillbox, saving a dude's life, all this other stuff. Nobody gave that to them. They had to take it, and they had to take it knowing that, hey, I'm probably going to die doing this. I am going to die.
Well, another thing as well, like to kind of like touch up back on that, is like people trust you, and like pages like yours as well. Like people have found someone that they can kind of lean on, and it's a big responsibility and all that. And I know what you mean with all that despair, because when we did the worst Navy command, we're getting a bunch of stories and stuff like that, and some of the stuff you just hear, like it's honestly sad, but it's like the fact that you're putting it out there and you're being completely honest about it. And if you miss something, you're not afraid to just say, hey, you know what? Hey, that was false. I'm sorry. This was the sources and we thought it was correct. Whatever. We're not above that. So it's like when you build that trust, people kind of look at you, and maybe us as well or whatever, but it gives them hope as well. Although like we're reading this stuff like a lot. But even then, like you've been entrusted with that, and it's a huge responsibility. But then it gives people that hope, because then they have someone to kind of look up to. And it's like, okay, hey, we're not alone. And I think that's the other thing that sometimes people forget when they see all this stuff. And just like you said, it's at that smaller level. And if they see that there's bigger, I know we're not like huge big pages, but even then, other people are starting to kind of notice, and they see that they can kind of have a little bit more of that light and that hope. It's like, hey, we can all do it.
Of course. Yeah. And when what you're talking about there, anything that I put out, and I've been like this for a long time, because I did make some mistakes early on, and I still do make some mistakes from time to time. I don't make any big mistakes, but when it comes to stuff that I put my name on, this is important. This isn't just social media is about sharing stuff, right? It's about sharing stuff. It's about getting stuff out there. I don't have time to vet every single thing that comes through me. All right. So I'm not going to pretend that I do. I share some stuff because I hope some of you can see this stuff and start to connect dots that maybe I wasn't able to connect and say, oh, well, I read this at one point. I read this. Well, I'm not buying this or whatever else, but that's what social media is for. But when I put my name on something, I wrote the story, I vetted it, I sourced it, dude, I take everything I take every precaution to make sure that I am applying journalistic standards as what journalistic standards should be to make sure I get the story right. Because you're right, Doc, it is so freaking important we do this with integrity. There is nothing in this for me to get likes or follows. How many times my Instagram account's been deleted? How many times have your Instagram account's been deleted? We get deleted. Like, I don't care about follows. I don't care about likes. Dude, none of this means anything to me. I do this because I want the information out there, and it makes me sick sometimes, and I don't want to do this sometimes. But at the end of the day, I was just going to say, at the end of the day, if we don't apply that integrity and be honest with what we're putting out, then none of it matters. We're as worthless as anybody else.
Well, and that's the only frustration that I have about losing followers is there's just less of a reach. That's it. Man, at the end of the day, that's all. It's just like, damn, it's that much harder to get. And, it's a new network of people. We try to share stuff. I mean, that's why I'm doing this podcast now, too, is like, hey, let's make sure our audience knows about other people and there's other information and people they can get information from in case they don't already know. And sometimes it just sparks something in somebody's mind as well,
Exactly. It's small gains too, Okay. Yeah. I don't have 1 million followers. I don't need 1 million followers. I can lose accounts. I can gain accounts. I can grow here. I can do a little bit here. I can connect with this guy here, get a little bit more. I've got email accounts. I've got my own app. I've got lots of platforms I do this stuff on, but it's a little bit here and there. I think of it like this. I think of it like a World War II campaign. You know how often those freaking lines moved? Not very. I mean, maybe every 6 months a line would move. You hear about these battles, these big battles where big things happen, but guess what? Those were few and far between. And when they were in them, a lot of times nothing was happening. They were stagnant. And that's the way this is. You're going to get a little bit here and there. You're going to lose some ground. You're going to gain some ground. But the point is, you got to keep moving forward. And forgive me for saying this, but you got to stop being a bitch and being all Sally and Nancy in the comments with the nobody's coming for us. Why do anything? It's just Stop it. I don't want you on my team, dude.
No, I know. When I see people say that, and it's just like, yeah, man, like we were saying before, I get it from the level that like, hey, look, it's tough for all of us and everything like that, but you're never going to move forward with that attitude. And if you can't move beyond that, then please don't comment. And you know what, if you're only going to comment that, I'm not your personal therapist. I'd rather you just either stop commenting or don't even follow. I mean, honestly, because so many of us feel that way anyway, and it's a battle. And that's not helping anyone. That's not helping anyone at all. I know it sucks, and I know it sucks to feel that way, but you know what? You just got to figure stuff out because man. Like, look, to change up speed a little bit, something we were talking about, and I'd like to talk about. Doc, what did you just go through? What just happened to you in your military career?
I transitioned from male to from actually my transition process.
How are those shots going, man?
Good.
Your voice still sounds pretty deep.
Yeah, they gave me trinolone acid.
What are you gonna get that estradiol?
I mean, I have the dilator in right now, so I got that coming from me, which is but I just got out like a few weeks ago, and it was
but why did you get out?
Just because I had to stand up for what I believed in, and to just not like go with that current mandate. And although like the Navy SEALs won their case, and I was able to kind of stay in, I'm glad I didn't. That like I still stuck to it because from someone, a friend of mine just told me, he's like, hey, things are getting worse again. They're starting to tighten back up and like get really weird with stuff. So I was like, it kind of settled that for me. You know what I mean? He kind of gave me that closure. I was like, okay, like I already knew I had done the right decision, but like that just kind of solidified it even more. But yeah, not going with the jibber jabber and like saying no. I got forced out, and I was like, okay, but I got to keep all my benefits, which I know it's like, oh, but it's the military and you hate it. Yeah, I know, but you know, if they can pay me for my disability, I'm gonna milk it. No, I'm just playing. But yeah, it was a complete disaster, just that whole process, because it's
Well, and you have over 10 years too.
yeah. So yeah, I was over that hump. So it's like it was kind of like hard because it's like something I've been doing for such a long time, and I would still see like the hope in like some kids, and they would like ask me and stuff and be like, yo, like bro, like what's gonna happen? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I legitimately don't know. I was like, prepare for the, you know, and I had like the luck of like I was getting out, so I kind of fell within that group. But other kids had like full contracts, other like homies had like full contracts still, and they thought they were gonna get kicked out, and they were banking on that, and then it didn't happen. So it was causing a lot of issues for them. Like, but I told them, hey man, like you gotta prepare for both, and it's like get your appointments, go to school, and just be ready to get out. Like it's whenever your contract ends. But it was kind of sad to see so many people being not knowing what was gonna happen, and other people that were just getting kicked out regardless.
Is there any estimate as to the number of people that have been kicked out across all branches? Because I've just seen like mixed bags of numbers.
Oh,
Is
I
there?
don't know.
Ask that again. You're looking for a total number?
Yeah, or even just like an estimate, you know,
Oh no, we're
for
at 5,400 plus now. The last number I saw was 5,400 and some change. That was approximately a week and maybe a week and a half ago. So we're probably a little bit higher than that now. But yeah, the last number officially was 5,400 plus.
And how many people have refused the jibber jabbers? Estimate.
A lot. So we had a lot of we got a lot of the PowerPoint briefs that were going to the DHA until they locked down that that portal that we were getting them from. But we actually have another venue for something else because we were able to get those briefs into the hands of a couple of representatives who were more than thrilled to get their hands on them. But anyways, basically, the number of people who have not fully been vaccinated in the entire DOD, the entire reserves, guard, active, all of it, is just shy now of 500,000. Just shy of 500,000. When I say fully vaccinated, I mean they only got one vaccine or no vaccine. So even if you got one, you're still not, you're still not in compliance.
Jibber jabber? Should I edit that later?
Okay. We're not technically saying anything that they're going to sting us for, but you're right. I got to say the jibber jabber. My bad.
No, I know. I just wanted to see because you were the one that had mentioned that. I
say it in my videos, and YouTube doesn't really mind if you say it. It's if you attribute anything bad to that thing. So
okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So a causation correlation kind of thing.
Correct.
Oh my god, I'm sorry, but I hate that term and how people have kind of like taken it and they don't use it within their correct context. Correlation's not causation, dude. And it's just like, oh my gosh.
Actually, do you have a source for that?
Right. Yeah, but you think about the impact of national security. If they were to follow through, we're talking about close to 500,000, and the newest one I saw was okay. So I could pull this up. I'm going to spitball this. I have all the facts somewhere sitting. I just don't know where. So this is what Florida is doing, and I've confirmed that it's happening in several other states as well. But what they're doing is they're having their troops turn in their gear now. They're turning in their gear, National Guard guys, if they haven't been jibber jabbered. And I think the mandate was set to hit as of 30 June or 1 July, whatever it was. But anyways, they're telling them to put in their religious accommodations, and they want to keep them on the books through the fiscal year in order to collect the money from them, and then they'll cut them loose. And I'm like, that is freaking fraud, bro.
Wow.
That is fraud. Yes.
Man, that bean counter that figured that one out too. It's like, yeah. So we'll just keep them on the books.
Yep,
It's
100%. We'll
awesome.
keep them on the books. They won't drill. We're going to keep them on the books, get the money through the fiscal year, and then cut them loose. Bye. Worry about the next year. That's fraud, bro. There's no other word for it. And will anybody do anything about it? No, they won't. But we will keep banging the drum and cause problems.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, it's like the whole idea of the tipping point, Malcolm Gladwell, right? You don't know where that tipping point is in many situations, and you can't start tipping things over until you start drilling into people's heads, because there are a lot of people out there who the Noam Chomsky manufacturing consent. Our corporate media's job is to create the appearance of something that's not real. They're trying to create facts for you to accept. And you should really see it quite recently with the shifting wherever they're moving the frame for you. If you didn't get it before, I really hope that when March of 2020 hit and everything that you've seen since then really points this out to you, because that is what they do. They try to manufacture consent. And so what you've got to do is you've got to have some of these people out there that, and I get it, some people are going to say like Tucker Carlson, he's controlled opposition. Maybe he is, but I tell you what, he's bringing more truth to the corporate media than anyone else is right now. I don't know what it means in the end of the day, but I know that he's at least putting some truth out there. And people like that will help to move those things along. And that's why we've got to be careful about what we say here on YouTube, because people don't like us saying the things, because there are things that we will say here on YouTube that are true, but it's not the truth they want to hear.
Right. And that whole using people for the platform they have, that's a very real thing. There's a lot of people that I've talked to and that I've worked with and that I don't particularly care for. It's not necessarily that I don't like them. Maybe I don't like the way that they handle business, or I have an issue with journalistic standards, but because of large platforms they may have, I absolutely will talk on anybody's show. And here's the thing, this is something we've started doing recently is, dude, I don't care if you're on the left or right. Guess what? If you're a snake in the grass and I'm sending you information and you're doing nothing about it, I'm going to send it to your opponent so that he can use it against you. So these dudes on these Republicans who are like put out these requests to get, hey, send us an email if you're being coerced, or if this is happening. I'm not going to tell you the name. We spoke to one representative's team, and what had happened. I'm just going to tell you the facts. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. And if they hear it and they realize I'm talking about them, I don't care. I talked to them. I explained what was going on. I explained who I was, and found out that this email account that they had been supposedly, they had opened up and they've been receiving, they forgot to check it. They forgot to check it. They had the wrong account or something, whatever else. But anyways, 3 weeks went by, 3 weeks where they weren't checking it. And when the guy got into it, he was like, dude, I don't know what to do with this. I have thousands of emails and I don't even know where to start. And I was like, you got a real problem, don't you? And I explained what I would do from a team standpoint, like a guy who answers literally hundreds of messages all the time from all kinds of people, how I sift through messages, how I find the important stuff. But the fact was, they had ignored this box. They had put out this call for action, forgot about the freaking box or whatever goof up happened, and then pretty much didn't do anything on the backside. And I'm like, you know what? I don't need to work with you. I'm going to work with your opponent, and I'm going to give them information so they can use it against you. And that's what we've started doing. I don't care who you are. If you are an enemy of the freaking Constitution, which I think all of them are, most of them are, then I'll just use whatever useful idiot is available at the moment to complete my agenda.
Well, and you know what? At the end of the day, the whole left-right paradigm just it doesn't make sense, because the people that I'll stay away from are the neoconservatives and the neoliberals, because they're both just playing the corporate game. Because there's a lot of honesty that you're going to find on the left or the right. Whether it's the people in the gray zone on the left and just the various other people like Tucker Carlson, but then there's a ton of people across Telegram and other places that are the same way. And there are people out there that care about this, and these platforms are doing everything they can to try to shut these people down. And that's why, like I'm always trying to make sure that with our Telegram channel, we're sharing this stuff, get the information out there, and try to let people know where you can do it. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish, if the one thing that I wish is that more people were trying at least themselves to find this, that I've got to be a little more nice about that, because I haven't always been nice. I get
You
frustrated,
and me both.
because it's like, this is really quite literally life or death kind of stuff. And if you're just sitting back waiting for the information to come to you, I'm sorry. Like, things have gotten crazy. Things exponentially are getting crazier. And to be able to sift through that, without the ability to discern the information at the same time is a challenging place to be.
Yeah. We were talking about this in one of my chats the other day, but basically if you're putting out bad information on the other side, that's bad. But if you're putting out bad information on our side, just because you're against their side, you're just as bad. You're not helping the cause. The thing about our cause is we know we're right. This isn't
Yes.
We are factually in the right, and we need to stay on top of the facts. And here lately, a lot of our pipelines for information and truth have gotten kind of muddied up with people like throwing out some nonsense that I'm like, that's not accurate. And I have to go back to my researchers and be like, hey, what's up with this? And they're like, no, that's not correct. And they'll show me the information. I'm like, okay, it's important that these big people out there put out accurate information. We have to stay on top of being right and accurate.
Yeah. Because I don't know how many times too, where it's not as much now, because I mean, especially as we've lost so many followers and stuff like that, people used to send us a lot more stuff, and we used to be much more actively involved. I mean, quite literally, right now, the PBF Instagram account I can't log into. If I was to log into that account with my phone that I have, they would burn it down. DD and I tried to set up an account, and they burned it down.
Literally, it got
You got
shut
the
down.
IP ban.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like the whole. It's not even just the IP. Like, it's the phone. Like the MAC ID for the phone itself.
Oh, yeah.
Like they've got that like nailed down, because I've tried logging in other places. And it's just not going to happen.
They're in your walls.
And that's fine.
They're in the walls,
Is
bro.
that noise? Is that the noise again? Oh man. All right. You know what? Something that's really interesting, and we started talking about this. It was something that was just announced by our good buddy Lloyd yesterday. The military has taken it upon themselves now, since the abortions are going back to the state. The military's now going to basically, I guess, open abortion facilities on military bases.
Well, yeah. So let me cover this one for you. Feel free to jump in, but I have the information. I was actually so for the audience listening, I was making a video about this, doing the research, making a video, which did not go well because I had my input settings for my microphone all wrong. And so it's all distorted. I have to do it again. But anyways, I got all the research done. And I had just posted on this on Instagram yesterday, and put it on Telegram too. And people were like, oh, that's not accurate. And there was a lot of comments, but no, it is accurate. And so let me pull that up, exactly what was said. I'll briefly surmise what was said. Basically, the Pentagon is refusing to, it said the Pentagon refuses to follow any abortion laws enacted in the wake of Roe versus Wade being rescinded or whatever. Okay. That's a little inflammatory, but it's not inaccurate. What was actually said was Lloyd Austin came out and said, nothing is more important to me or to this department than the health and well-being of our service members, yada, yada, yada. The department is examining this decision closely and evaluating our policies to ensure we continue to provide seamless access to reproductive health care as permitted by federal law. I will make this super fast. First of all, you have the Hyde Amendment. What does the Hyde Amendment say? It says no funds authorized or appropriated by federal law, and none of the funds in any trust fund to which funds are authorized or appropriated by federal law shall be expended for any abortion. That's what the Hyde thing says. And then there is a law. It's Public Law 104-61. And in 2013, it was slightly amended, but basically language in the Senate version of the National Defense Authorization Act for FY 2013 that would expand coverage for government-funded abortions for cases of rape and incest was included in the conference report and signed into law. But basically, Public Law 104-61 says it's a law that basically it bars the funding of abortions, and it also prevents DoD medical facilities from giving abortions. And at the time it was passed, that was any abortion whatsoever. Now, if your pregnancy is the result of rape or incest, you can get an abortion on a medical facility or a DoD medical facility, but otherwise you cannot. So here's the thing. If the Pentagon in any way facilitates an abortion beyond one stipulation here, one, and only one that I can think of. If your commander authorizes your normal leave, the leave that you have accrued as part of your contract, you get 30 days every year. If he signs your authorization to go to that different state and with your own money on your own time, get an abortion, which isn't facilitated by the Department of Defense, that's just you using your leave, then everything's okay. However, if you are in a state that bars, that has banned abortion, and it's no longer federally protected, the government is barred by public law from providing that on a base unless you were raped or it's the result of incest. And then if they give you permissive TDY, if they give you free leave, if they pay for your ability to travel, any of those things, they have broken federal law, and that will in fact be illegal. So that is what we're waiting on. Let's see what they play.
Okay. And I get that, but everything they've done in the last year and a half has been illegal. So do you think that they're not going to do that?
I think they're going to try to. I think so. Here's what I was told from a friend who, if they're listening, I apologize. I was told that this information was leaked, not Lloyd Austin's stuff, but basically the part about the Department of Defense saying that they were going to ignore any law. That was actually real verbiage that was leaked in a closed meeting. I can't prove that to you. I'm just telling you what somebody else told me. And they said that it will come out at some point, but it was basically to test the waters. It might have been an intentional leak to see how people would respond. But yes, so the Department of Defense has broken the law, but they have done it craftily in a way where, we played this shell game and we called the drug interchangeable and there's all this blah, 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 blah. Okay. Let them try to do it again. They've already pinned themselves into a corner. As Liberty Counsel put it, either you had the drug before and you're lying now, or you kicked out all of these service members and you just got the drug and you broke the law back then. Either way, the Department of Defense has proven that they've broken the law. Well, whatever they do here, they're just going to dig their hole deeper and deeper. And I can tell you secondhand knowledge, but from somebody I trust very much, firsthand knowledge, Lloyd Austin is in bad way politically. He is kind of burned bridges with a lot of people because he has not handled this well. And he's making things very, very difficult on the Department of Justice. And they're getting kind of tired of him. So take that for what it's worth.
So in line with that, I do believe that I saw you post about this. Aren't they now investigating people changing the database from a few years prior?
Okay, I got to be real careful with this one because this was the one video. No, I'll say it. I just got to be real careful in my vocabulary. This is the one video. I put this video up on YouTube and it's on Rumble and you all have seen it. But anyways, it got blipped real quick. All right. So that database, I'm not going to say the word, that had those injuries in it came out, and Department of Defense freaked. The numbers were off the chart. They came out and they said that it was goofed. oh man, there from 2016 to 2020, it had blah, blah, blah. Well, the problem with that is that not all the information was goofed. It was only some of it. It was the stuff that you would attribute to this. We're not going to say the word, but attribute to this. Other things like typhoid, Lyme disease, all these other types of diseases, they were the same they were consistent across the board. So why didn't all of the numbers change? Why was it only these other things that were attributed to this? Okay. So anyways, they said,
well, can I say something really quick there too?
Yeah.
So, and if you don't understand data, like anybody who has a basic understanding of data, if you're going to see an abnormality is going to occur across multiple places. The abnormality that occurred only occurred in one specific location. That being the case makes it just, it tells you right there that somebody's fudging something.
Yeah. And so what they did is they took the database down. I am flat out calling it fraudulently, but yes, they fraudulently changed the data. They scrubbed it. They brought it in line with what they'd expect. So the numbers at this point went from like 1,000%, 300%, like massive numbers, spikes in injuries down to like 30%. Still an increase, but they're saying 2021 was just an increase of like 30%, which wasn't accurate. But anyways, yes, they did in fact do this thing. None of it adds up because, like I said, like you just said, it only happened in one place. It didn't happen across all these other diseases and stuff. It only happened in certain areas, and it just happened to fall in line with the years that were polled. It was an arbitrary poll in the first place. Somebody arbitrarily polled 2016 to 2020 for a baseline, and those just happened to be the years that were messed up. This is one of those things we were talking about earlier. Stop being so insulting and lying to me and thinking that I'm this stupid. Like, come on, you're looking at this and you're like, who believes this? A lot of people believe it. But here's what I put out in my article the other day. That 1,100% increase. Mark Bashaw pulled data on June 12th. June 12th just happened like 2.5 weeks ago. That shows, and I have it right in front of me. You can go to my website, trmlx.com, terminalx.com. Don't go to the clothing place, but hit the media button there. You know what? In fact, I will copy it and paste it and put it into the chat here. Do links work? You'll just have to copy and paste that. Anyways, I have the numbers right in front of me. You can see them. There was an 1,100% increase in jab-related injuries, adverse events in 2021 for the active component. They can't scrub this. They can't get away from all of this damaging data. It's right there in front of us.
Well, and something that we were talking about too as well before we started this podcast, there is something that is beginning to appear in solid numbers that they're seeing across a lot of Western countries. And what it is it's comparing birth rates from January and February of 2022 to January and February of 2021. And I saw data for specifically for Germany, but I think there was also some data in there included for the United Kingdom and as well as the United States. And somebody described it. Now, I haven't seen the numbers. And I said this to you, Danny, and I'm not sure if this is right, because if this is right, this is insane. They're saying it's 9 standard deviations from what one would expect with the differences of birth rates, by looking over time. And just understand that if you start getting outside of like just 1 standard deviation is weird, 2 standard deviations is really weird. 9 standard deviations is there is something completely wrong with the system here. Like, danger, danger, warning, like this is bad.
Yeah. And I guess what bothers me the most is, okay, we see this stuff happening, but we have like actively a Secretary of Defense who is profiting off this, making millions of dollars off this. At the same time that he is giving the order to do this thing, he is not only getting rich, but he is watching what is happening. We've seen the report. We saw the one that came out of Fort Bragg, how they stopped reporting on the number of deaths in
when was
August.
that? June of last year or August? Okay, August. Okay.
The report came out in March, the Miami Standard, but they just stopped. I mean, who does that? The base literally just stopped reporting the deaths because they had so many people that were just waking up, like not waking up, they were just being found dead in their bunks. That's insane.
From what I've heard too, was there was a CAG guy that died in the parking lot outside after working out. He was found in his vehicle.
A major. Yeah. I mean, you could see right off the bat when they put this information out and they said, "Oh, we don't know what happened to him." I looked at him and I was like, "That's a CAG dude." You could just tell. You look at his uniform and just the crap thrown on there, his hair and everything else. I'm like, that's CAG right there. And I'm like, I already know instantly what happened to him. You don't tell me that a major, what is a major in CAG? He's going to be a young dude. He's probably, let's just say 30 years old. Those dudes are hard chargers. They shoot up the pole quick. You tell me a 30-year-old dude in the most elite unit in the world, just, yeah, that's normal. They just, have heart attacks in their car and die. Okay.
Well, and there were a lot of guys out in Coronado in a specific class that have they have an inflamed heart, and this is a breed of people that this is very unusual. This was passed along to me in somewhat confidence and everything like that, but this was also the same class where they tried to say that someone passed from another during a specific week. Somebody passed. There's a lot of people from that class that came out and are having issues with their hearts. Doesn't make any sense. And I don't know what else to tell you guys. Like, we're being lied to across the board, and it's only to profit these evil people in charge. And when you've got the Secretary of Defense profiting from both ends, come on, man.
Yeah, and you got a willing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
I was gonna say there was also that Navy captain she was that flight doc who was also put out a lot of information and numbers on all these people that were coming in doing their flight assessments, because you have to be flight qualified at least once a year and all this stuff. And when you're unable to, so if you take certain like medications or even certain types of jabs for other kinds of things like that, you have to down people for a certain couple of days from their flight status. But after a lot of this stuff was happening, there was a lot of people that were on flight status that were being downed, and some of them were being like down, like as if they can't fly or they can't do anything within like flying status. So a lot of numbers like that came out, and she did like a whole speech on that as well too, and presented all this data, and people still ignored it. And it was like an hour-long presentation on all this stuff, from pilots to crew, and everyone around were having all these same issues when it came to cardio issues, or even just regular respiratory as well. And it was all correlating to the one thing. And even then, like, people still ignored it. So it's I don't know how much more people need that's in front of them for them to kind of like really kind of come to their senses and like truly see what is actually happening.
We have so much information, man. If you look at the FAA has a policy that you can't fly for a year after taking an experimental drug. But FDA came out and made a recommendation. It was either FDA or CDC, but either they made a recommendation that this was different. This was different. I'm like, how is this different, dude? That the whole reason that the freaking thing was put into place in the first place was that they didn't know what was in it, and they wanted a year to see if anything had happened. So dude didn't croak in the cockpit of a 747 and crash a bird with 300 people on board. It's a big freaking deal, possibly like fly into the middle of a city and, cause all kinds of mayhem. But they just changed the policy, and the FAA decided to go along with it. And I'm like, you can't do that. So like the Army, we're seeing the same thing. We're seeing pilots being grounded all over the place because they're having these conditions. Their careers are being threatened. You will be kicked out if you don't get this. But if you do get it, we have guys now that are like, I can't fly anymore. I've been grounded because I have this abnormality. I had this heart thing. I had this whatever. And now you have guys at Fort Rucker. Fort Rucker is they just enacted a new policy where you're not allowed to PCS. Like, you're allowed to graduate flight school, but you can't PCS to your duty station. And they're telling them, we'll put you in an admin slot until you serve your time, and we don't care. Like, so you got to keep in mind, the Army just had a massive issue with, they still do, a massive issue with retention for pilots. That's why they enacted the 10-year active duty service obligation, but they can't keep pilots in the air because they're either being grounded, they're not coming out of flight school, and our force is being whittled down faster than we can populate it. Who's running this show, man?
Well, and there was the thing that you'd published last week. I saw up on your Instagram, where women in the showers are they're uncomfortable being in the showers with another woman that has a penis.
Yeah, they a female with male genitalia is what they called it. I'm like, yo, my
Okay.
guy, that's a dude. That's a dude.
Yeah.
She looking like a
Yeah.
man.
we just spent the last 15 years doing sharp, the sexual harassment and rape stuff in the Army, and that's just out the window. What's going to happen when something happens to one of these women in the shower? It'll get brushed under the rug.
Bro, and I mean, have you seen the numbers? Because the British prison system, like the United States is moving this way, but the British prison system, there is something along the lines that the male to female individuals that are transitioning over there have on their record. They have forcibly engaged in contact with females that females didn't want. Let's just say that. And that's the people that are transitioning in these prison systems.
They had like a ridiculous amount of pregnancies, and then they found out that, oh, surprise, this person didn't really have gender dysphoria. They just said they did so they could be in a jail with women. Oh man, who would do that? Yeah, what criminal would do that?
That was gender affirming prison transfer.
Right. I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm doing the same thing. You better believe it. I'm a woman now. Send me to the woman jail.
Well, I'm a black woman now, just so you know. I want you all to know that I'm a non-binary black woman. Keep that in mind.
I'm illegal.
Nice.
Amigo, we already do that.
Yeah, no. Mira, nomás ocupo tu social para agarrar trabajo, por favor. But yeah.
How'd you get in the military, bro?
My cousin's social.
I mean, we are living in a world that's just getting crazier, and it's hard to deal with sometimes. But again, hopefully we can help provide sanity for people. I don't know, and just honestly, at times, I just want to make people laugh sometimes too.
Yeah, same.
And
I sometimes I just have to fall back on that. Sometimes, honestly, the stories and the amount of pollution gets so dark, so heavy that I'm just like, you know what? Going back to memes, doing memes, and I don't care. People are like, come on, man. Like, where's the important stuff? I'm like, I'm not gonna die because you need your fix of important stuff. Go read CNN. I don't care.
Well, and like with it's PBF OOX. That's the latest one that we've got. And everything that I put up there, we've just gone over the top satire with everything, just to show the insanity of it. Like, we're going all the way in, but then plus 20%, right? Because I figured trying to speak of these things directly, it's just an instant deletion for us now. So let's see what we can do, and that's what I'm trying to do. And somehow Doc has maintained, well, because you had that one deleted, it ccame back, and it was deleted, and it came back again, right?
Yeah, and I can't even remember what the initial one was. Oh, and funny enough, ironically enough, they popped me on Cinco de Mayo, bro.
That's hilarious.
Last year.
It's absolutely hilarious.
I think it was last year. It might have been 2 years ago. But I don't even remember what the topic was. But then, I did get it back for a little bit. And then we got deleted again. And then they popped the second one. And then somehow I was able to get it back. And now it's just I try to like I try to be smart, and I know some people are like, "Oh, come on, man," but it's like sometimes like playing the game smart, and if like I can use the numbers we have to push people towards like the right directions and to like right people like you guys, like Danny, and that way so people can see all this stuff and kind of have like a little bit of balance, because when you're overdosing on them black pills, sometimes you do need a little bit to kind of like
Oh
ease up
yeah,
a little bit. And so I definitely understand that, especially when we're going
Well,
heavy on
yeah.
all this stuff.
I've been fortunate. I've been able to cut in with some bigger names in the industry, like Jack Posobiec. That's a big one.
yeah.
He reached out about a year
Yeah.
ago and made contact with me, and he shared a bunch of my stuff on Twitter back in the day. But every once in a while, I'll get a big one. That was that recent one, the one you were talking about, the females being uncomfortable with a dude in the shower. I sent him that on Twitter, and I was like, "Bro, check this out." And so he reshared it, and of course, my phone goes crazy when he reshares any of my stuff. But having those kind of ins in the community are huge, because they can't just come out and ban guys like Jack Posobiec. He
Yeah,
has to do something crazy for them to have good justification. Us, they can just cut us off, and who's going to
yeah,
listen? Nobody cares.
yeah,
But
yeah,
guys
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that, huge. It takes a big mistake to get banned from them.
Well, and you were on that one too, Stu Peters, the one guy that used to be in the
Yeah.
military that's on there. I listened to that. That was a pretty good show. I forget what is it, that Red. What is that network?
Red Voice Media. Yeah, I've been on Stu
Yeah, Red
Peters'
Ghost
show
Media.
3 times now. It was once with him because he was hosting Stu's show, and then twice with Stu. Then I did
Okay.
one with Dr. Jane Ruby, and then I've done
Yeah,
several articles and all that. But those are important, because you get that information out on those bigger platforms, stuff that people aren't going to hear otherwise. Nobody has that in the military, at least the context of that in. It's a big deal, and so I don't take it lightly.
well, and that's the thing too. Is I mean, the history of us. I mean, and even back in the day too, we didn't care as much.
Oh, gee.
You know, we just wanted to go out there and just defend people. And just hit hard, hit hard, hit hard. But
Yeah.
I never expected that we were going to be in the world that we were in at the same time. We also had a voice like we have. And it's trying to find that balance to it, because and also at the end of the day, I'm not going to lie. I love nothing more than to make a meme and laugh at it myself. And then at that point,
Yeah.
I hope somebody else likes it. But if I'm laughing at it and my friends are laughing at it, because really a lot of times I'm just trying to make my friends laugh most of all. And I hope
Dude,
other
that
people
is
will like it.
that's 100% why I made Terminal X. When I did this thing a year ago, it was a year ago in May. I think I'd been deleted for the second time on Instagram, and I was just pissed. I was like, screw you guys, like I'm tired of getting deleted. And so I asked people, I was like, hey, one of the things we do in the military is dark humor, right? That's how we connect. That's how we stay alive. Like the stuff we see, we've got to like just be nasty and dark about it and to make jokes. And a lot of that stuff gets deleted on Facebook and Instagram. And I wanted to give dudes a place where they could congregate and put dark humor on a thing. So yeah, we do other things. I use Terminal X for a lot of other purposes, but like I just wanted a place where people could make a group with their buddies and share dark humor and not get deleted for it. And so yeah, I get it. I just want to make a meme and laugh sometimes.
Bro, talk about, did you hear about what happened in the UK? That one, I don't know if he was a prison guard, talk about creating groups and sharing memes. He was on a WhatsApp group and he shared like 6 George Floyd memes, and he got sentenced to like 20 weeks in jail for sharing that.
Dude,
Yeah,
some of
that's
those
just
George Floyd memes fire though.
oh, absolutely.
Wow,
And,
there's some
and
good ones.
oh, dude, and I still like to stumble upon Poll every once in a while, and they're still doing amazing things. Like anything new comes along, they manage to find a way to make a good meme and reincorporate some of these images. It's quite amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, right on, man. I let's go ahead and wind it down here, guys. I know you got to finish up that video, Danny, and I do really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. I guess before we go, you and Doc, any final words and discussions of the military or kind of looking towards the future?
On my end, from like most of the people that like were asking us for advice, is like, hey, keep your head up and just keep fighting for what you believe in and what you think is right. And it's funny because someone in the comments was saying it's like that atheists couldn't put in for exemption. You actually could under a moral exemption. So there are ways to fight around things that are unfair. And if you read the instructions and you read a lot of this stuff, you have these tools available. And just like everyone's kind of been saying, it's like it's up to you guys at the smallest level to fight back against the things that you know that you can fight back against, to do what you can to slow things down and keep each other safe as well.
Well, what I'd say is, you know, stop. We alluded to it earlier, but stop being spoon fed. We need we need more people in the fight, not people that are waiting for handouts from the people who know stuff. Okay, my group, there's I'm not going to tell you how many are in it, but there's a few of us, and we're made up of doctors, lawyers, researchers, you know, all sorts of folks, very smart. And it was just a grassroots group of people who came together, people that were digging and hungry. And I mean, I've met some of the most brilliant researchers, civilians, no military experience, no experience doing this stuff, and they're just hungry. And I'm telling you, the stuff they found and they've uncovered, it's because they have a vested interest in finding this stuff out for themselves. So stop waiting to be spoon fed and start digging and start joining the cause. Like, I need your help. Send me stuff. Tell me what's going on. I love just getting garbage from people because I connect dots, and I might not answer you, but I'm looking at it. I'm seeing it. So get in the fight.
Definitely, man. And it made me think of too, kind of what you were saying. It's a little bit cheesy, but I don't really care. Um, about keeping your head up and stuff like that. I'm going to do a little bit. I don't ever do this, but oh well, I decided to do it now. There's a poem by Rudyard Kipling. It's called "If," and it's basically about keeping your head up. And it starts out. It just says, "If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating. And yet, don't look too good, nor talk too wise." And there's a few more pieces of that, but that's really what it comes down to: is keep your head up, keep fighting, keep trying to love, because it's really hard to love. But just stay strong, everyone.
You're here.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, man. Have a good one.
All right. This Romeo 1 Oscar, and we are out.